And take...
Three? This is three because you've got the memory card.
Take three. Hello. Take four. Hello, this is We Talk Football, and I'm Lance Leach.
I'm Brian Wagner.
And if you haven't checked out our website, wetalkfootball.org, make sure you do that. Also, like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter.
You can also follow us on iTunes and SoundCloud and YouTube.
Yes, definitely YouTube.
Is probably where you're watching this.
Because that's a video camera over there, and you can't do that on SoundCloud.
You can see us.
Yes. All right, so this is a two-part thing that we're doing. It's going to be two separate videos taken same day. That's why we'll be wearing the same clothing. Don't think less of us.
He's really worried about it.
Yes.
He's really self-conscious.
For the first part, we're going to be covering our fantasy predictions. So we'll start with quarterbacks. And the top-rated quarterback for me is Drew Brees going into the season. He led last year in passing yards again. The Saints went out, and they got him three new weapons officially today. They drafted 6'3" receiver Michael Thomas out of Ohio State in the second round. They went and signed 6'6" tight end Kobe Fleener. That's going to be a huge red zone target for him. And then today they went and signed Hakeem Nicks to the team. So they just have put a plethora of targets around him again, and I expect another huge year. I wouldn't even be surprised if he pushed 5,000 yards again.
Yeah, for top quarterback, I definitely went Brees. Being a Saints fan, I know exactly what he can do. Very underrated quarterback in this league. When it seems like everyone's talking about Rodgers and Brady, suspended 4 games now. That's going to be huge. Cam Newton, same division. Brees definitely gets pushed to the wayside. I don't think that's right. And like you said, he led the league last year in passing while missing a game. He got hurt in one game, had to miss the next game, and still, tied the league in passing. And like you said, Michael Thomas coming in, or drafting, Kobe Fleener coming in, and now Hakeem Hicks. I think it's going to be great. Another year with Cooks. Brandon Coleman might step up.
Willie Snead came out of nowhere last year.
Came out of nowhere.
And then Mark Ingram showing that he can catch the ball out of the backfield.
He's healthy. Tim Hightower is starting to work well, too. He filled in nicely when Ingram went down for the season.
Plus, if we're going to be completely honest, the Saints' defense is probably going to rank towards the bottom of the league again, causing the Saints to have to throw the ball a lot.
From behind, throw the ball. Yeah. Okay.
Big things out of Brees. Players to avoid, quarterbacks to avoid. I'm going with Ben Roethlisberger, and I know that for some, like myself, you like to wait on drafting a quarterback, and Roethlisberger is normally a guy you can get in the mid-rounds that ends up being a big deal because he puts up big numbers. The problem, though, is that the Steelers' offensive line actually got worse from where it was last season.
Is that possible?
And last season, he was hurt 3 or 4 times.
Yep. Vic came in twice, and then even
Landry Jones was in. Yeah. So, I have this really big gut feeling that Roethlisberger is not going to make the season fully healthy. And if you're banking on him being your QB1, it's going to hurt.
My player to avoid, and this comes no surprise to you, Jay Cutler, Chicago. Every year, one analyst gets a bug up his ass and is like, Cutler's going to explode this year. Calling it now, put money on it in Vegas, and then Cutler, captain clutch / throw interceptions. Avoid him, all costs. He's got no one to throw to. And frankly, I think he's been a garbage quarterback since he came out.
All right. Sleeper. My sleeper quarterback that I'm going with is Matt Ryan. I know that he's killed a lot of people. He's killed me in the past. You put a lot of high hopes into him, and then he does nothing. I'm not saying draft him as your QB1, draft him as your QB2. A high-end backup quarterback that if your starter gets hurt or you draft somebody who ends up not performing up to par, or you're the person who decides that you want to go out and draft Brady high, Matt Ryan could be that good 4-week fill-in. He's got the weapons again. They have Julio Jones, of course.
And that's all he needs, really.
Right, but they went out and they picked up Mohamed Sanu, who I'm not a big fan of, but a lot of the analysts are. He's got the kid that they drafted last year to play slot, Justin Hardy. And then they drafted a new tight end for him this year, Austin Hooper, who is getting no attention this offseason. So I'm really curious how that's going to work out. But I like Hooper And I think that he could give Ryan that nice vertical threat down the middle.
My sleeper is your boy, Teddy Bridgewater. I think this is going to be the year that we see him step out. Saw glimpses of that last season, him starting to come out of his shell, starting to be a leader. I know that's like one of the biggest knocks on Bridgewater is he's not a leader on the field. And I mean, I can't fault him too much for that when you're on the same field as Adrian Peterson. I mean, that man is the alpha dog in the locker room. But AP is going to be 31 this year. They're not going to be running as heavy, especially now that they got Laquan Treadwell. It's going to be huge, especially in the red zone. Finally, a big body to fight for the ball. Let Teddy just throw it up instead of Teddy trying to find someone or scrambling for his life. I expect big, like Blank said, not a number 1 necessarily. Number 2, you'll easily find him 7, 8, 9.
All right, so now we're going to jump into our running backs. And speaking of Adrian Peterson, he is my number 1 running back going into this season. I know he's over.
Are you going to be able to say that?
I know he's over 30, but you know what? He became the second running back in NFL history to win the rushing title as a 20-something-year-old and a 30-year-old. So it's like Father Time hasn't crept up on him yet. We'll see how long it takes, but I'm leaving him at number 1 until Father Time catches him.
I'm going to go really young. I'm going to go David Johnson of Arizona. Started seeing great things out of him. I don't think he's another guy that's not commanding a lot of attention that he should be. With AP, Gurley, Bell suspended 4 games.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Bell probably would have been my number 1. Yeah, I like David Johnson.
All right. Players to avoid. Jonathan Stewart, Carolina. He is, two of his seasons, I believe, in his career, he's actually managed to stay healthy for most of it. Not even all of them. I don't think he's had a season where he's been healthy for all 16 games. Last year, he went down for 2. And he had a stellar season, which is why people may end up drafting him high, but do not overpay for him. If you're going to draft him, wait until the mid to late rounds. He is, I know he's going to get hurt. He is too injury prone, and with the amount of times he carried the ball last season, something's going to happen to him this year. I'm just waiting for it.
My player to avoid, I mean, you mentioned Father Time. Frank Gore, 33, going to be 34, I think, this year. Definitely, I mean, I would say avoid any Indianapolis running back. Running behind that offensive line is just a no-go. But Frank Gore, he's old. He's not the same player he was in San Francisco, not by a long shot. Last year, he didn't look good at all. And then you were talking earlier, this kid Ferguson.
Josh Ferguson.
Ferguson, who is expected to basically take that by some point this year, and you don't want to be stuck with that dead weight.
My sleeper for running backs, I'm going with Ryan Matthews. This is a high-risk, high-reward type deal here. If he can stay healthy, running for Philly's offense with Doug Peterson, who's coming from Kansas City, and we know they like to run the ball. He was the offense coordinator over there. He's now the head coach for Philly. We could see big things out of Ryan Matthews if he can stay healthy. That's where the high risk, high reward comes in. I think he could do it. He hasn't actually he hasn't had a lot of tread lately. He hasn't been on the field a lot lately. We could see him actually do something this year. And even if they do give the start to somebody else, I think he had 6 rushing touchdowns or something last season, and he was just a fill.
Definitely came in better than Murray did.
So he could end up being a goal line vulture. He's a mid to late round sleeper pick. You throw him in on a bye week or something, and maybe gets you a touchdown or 2.
For my sleeper, I picked Tim Hightower. I think with Kyrie Robinson being gone now, and with how well Hightower performed great down the stretch last year when Ingram went down, filling in as that number 1, he did great. Especially since, I mean, you want to talk not tread on the tires. He hasn't played a full season since 2013, 2014. So it's been a few years since he's actually played a full season. But I see Hightower filling that Robinson role. I know how much you hate it.
I had Ingram last year, and Robinson kept stealing all my touchdowns.
Every time it seemed like Ingram would drive to the goal line, Robinson would come and get the touchdown. I see Hightower filling that role. I also think Hightower is a better passer. or a pass catcher out of the backfield than Ingram. So he might start coming in for more of those. Since I don't think C.J. Spiller is going to be around much longer. So
receivers. My top receiver is Julio Jones. Might sound a little crazy, I know, given Antonio Brown's complete dominance over the position the last 2 years. But if I'm right with my Roethlisberger bet, Brown will still end up putting up a lot of points, but he is going to take a hit because Roethlisberger's not the guy out there throwing him the ball, which I think leaves the door open for somebody like Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins or even Odell Beckham.
Calm down. You're be okay?
But I like Julio, and I like what he has to offer. I like the fact that Atlanta went out and brought in some new weapons to possibly take some attention off of him. Yeah, I'm going with Julio for sure.
You knocked Ben Roethlisberger. I have Antonio listed as my top with an asterisk. Entirely Big Ben dependent. So over the last 3 seasons, Brown has caught more receptions in each year. Has also gotten more yards in each year. But I think 2013 was his high for touchdowns with 13. He's had 10 the last 2. I think he's going to continue that trend of improving. He's definitely coming out with something to prove. 6th rounder, everyone passed him up. He comes out every week to play, to prove something. So I think bold prediction, he's going to hit 2,000 receiving yards this year. Last year he had 1,840, I think. And so I don't think he's the type of player that it doesn't really matter who's throwing to him. He's going to catch the ball and do something with it.
My receiver to avoid is Deshaun Jackson. I think Washington's receiving core is very crowded. I like Kirk Cousins. I like what he did last year. I like that.
I think that's copyright. We might have to
you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But Deshaun Jackson, he's struggled to stay on the field. There's a lot of options over there in Washington now in the receiving core if somebody doesn't get cut prior to the start of the season. I would avoid Deshaun Jackson. Go with one of the youngsters. Go with Jamison Crowder or Josh Doxson if you want to draft a Washington receiver. Otherwise, just avoid them. Go with the tight end.
It seems like he hasn't really been the same kind of receiver he was playing with Andy Reid over in Philadelphia.
Yep.
For my to avoid is the entire Denver receiving core. Not tight ends.
We discussed this.
But receivers. I think, especially if Sanchez is the starter, he's not a good quarterback. They're not going to be able to do anything. Watch them. Don't draft any of them. Watch them when Paxton Lynch comes in, then maybe go out, pick someone up. Might be one of your best waiver wire additions. But avoid the Denver receivers to the draft just until Sanchez. Even if training camp comes out that Lynch, then completely disregard this.
But we had discussed this prior to, and I mentioned that I think Sanders is the player to avoid in that offense because he is that deep threat, and I don't think Sanchez can get the ball down the field to him. Whereas Thomas is that possession-type receiver who, don't get me wrong, he's fast, but he's somebody that you kind of just get the ball to and let him do what he has to on his own. So I don't know. I'm half in disagreement with Breyer here.
Half? Third?
Just half.
Okay.
Just half, yeah.
All right.
My sleeper is Josh Gordon. As we found out, was it today or yesterday? It was yesterday.
Yes, Monday.
Monday? Anyways, his suspension, he's been reinstated. He is suspended for 4 games, so don't use a high pick on him. But if he gets back to his form rookie season, and with Hugh Jackson as the head coach, that is a definite possibility. But he could be a star for anybody who decides to draft him. He could end up being that difference maker come playoff time too. So I would shoot to wait until like round 10-ish, but you might have to get him in like round 8 just to avoid your competition stealing him away.
Got Kendall Wright. I think he's going to go more under the table because he didn't complete last season. He went down with that injury. Prior to that injury, though, him and Mariota were starting to develop a really nice chemistry, started liking what was happening there. I think he's going to be mostly undervalued here just because he didn't finish out the season.
Oh, and then you got Delaney Walker that you got to think about.
Yeah. I think Wright's going to be he'd be a good steal in the teens.
And he's the only Titan receiver that they are not talking about right now. I've seen articles mentioning Dorial Green-Beckham, Justin Hunter, that rookie that they drafted, Tajay Sharp, and even receivers that the Titans have met with. Andre Johnson they met with recently. I've seen him mentioned, but nothing. I haven't seen anything on Kendall Wright, so I think he's flying under the radar.
They actually had another receiver come in this week. I don't remember who.
Tight ends. There you go. My number one, and I think it's all too obvious, is Rob Gronkowski. I have my doubts. I really do. He is on the Madden cover. He is without Brady for the first 4 weeks.
Lance believes in the Madden curse.
I do believe in the Madden curse. It is a very dangerous. Do not use a first-round pick on a tight end, people. Do not use a first-round pick on Gronkowski. I don't care if he's my number one. Don't do it. I'm telling you.
Don't regret that.
He's without Brady for the first 4 weeks, so this could be a little killer to him. But I think that with a young guy stepping in, never really made an official start as a pro quarterback, that could be his outlet, and being the top receiving option in the offense, that's basically going to be his target. So he could see a lot of targets from week 1 through 4 also. We'll see what happens.
I decided to go a little back from obvious. I could have put Gronkowski. My wife loves Gronk.
Yes, she does.
Step back a little bit because I like Jordan Reed. I like that. I love the connection between him and Cousins. I think Jordan Reed's I think he's overshadowed because of Gronkowski a lot. Pretty similar play style as a really aggressive catcher. I like him. Could have got him, Gronk. I wanted to list Coby Fleener here just because it's Brees slinging it to him. Look what Benjamin Watson did last year.
Fleener is definitely younger.
Yeah.
Players to avoid at the position. I have Jared Cook as my number one tight end to avoid. He is getting all this hype thrown at him because he's playing in Green Bay's offense. But one, we haven't seen a tight end actually perform in Green Bay's offense since Jermichael Finley was there. Two, Jared Cook has had hype surrounding him since he came into this league, and he has yet to actually do anything with it. He had that one blow-up game last season, the year before. I think it might have been 2 years ago at the very beginning. First game of the season. Blew up. Just tore it up. Everybody went out and dropped their tight ends, grabbed him, and he did nothing for the rest of the year. I'm saying avoid Cook. Don't waste your time. Move on. Go find the next guy.
I'm saying avoid Antonio Gates. Primarily due to father time. It's hard to say to avoid a player such as him. 5 years ago, that would have been unheard of. He's 36.
He's got a kid sitting right behind him.
Yeah, that young guy right behind him. I just don't see them using him as much. I wouldn't be surprised if he retires at the end of this season. What more does he got left to play for?
Other than a Super Bowl, but
Chargers are not any position in the next couple of years. I mean, they can't even get their first round pick on the field. What's up with that? I wouldn't be surprised if he's the next, big name that we see starting to fall.
Sleeper. I'm going with Vance McDonald, San Fran. If you've read any of my articles, you realize that I really like this kid. Last season he did pretty good working with Blaine Gabbert, and I firmly believe Gabbert's going to win that quarterback competition. So at least we'll have that rapport going. And then to top that off, he's going to be playing in Chip Kelly's offense, and we saw what Zach Ertz did in Philly with Chip Kelly as the head coach. I could see McDonald having maybe not quite those numbers unless San Fran can figure some stuff out, but their defense isn't up to par. Their team's going to be playing from behind a lot. He could be that easy outlet, that high target player. I like McDonald a lot.
I've got Jeff Heuerman.
Yeah, I think that's
something
right.
like that. Denver. The one receiver you should pick out of Denver, just because he's going to be that security blanket for Sanchez. He's going to be that dump off. Oh crap! Here you go, sling it to you. Big-bodied receiver. He doesn't have to throw the ball too far to get to him. That's basically it there.
All right, so we're moving on to kickers, and I'll start with my top-rated kicker, which is Steven Gostkowski. Pretty obvious one there. He's been the top kicker for a few years now, and I don't see him slowing down. So,
yeah, I was a little hesitant to put Gostkowski up here with Brady being out for 4 weeks, but I think they're going to be able to move the ball just fine. With Brady being gone, this might up Gostkowski's value. If they can't finish the drives, he's going to need to start coming out more. So, I'm with you. Gostkowski's my top. It's also my kicker last year, too.
My kicker to avoid is Greg Zuerlein, the kicker for the Rams. Pretty obvious there, too, if you look at his stats. I mean, he can make things from outside the 50, but if it gets in close, he's not going to be anywhere near the field goal post. The game that we went to see last year was against the Rams, and that was a disaster for him, making great long shots, and then when they need him to make a 30-yarder, he can't put it through the uprights. So if you play in a league where you lose points for missing field goals close up, he's not a guy you want.
For my avoid, I put Phil Dawson. Kind of caveat with the same thing with Brady being gone for the Patriots not being able to move the ball. I don't think San Francisco could even move the ball past the 50 at this point against anyone. So avoid Phil Dawson because you're not going to get any points from him.
All right, my sleeper for kickers is it's more of a team issue. I think that the Saints are going to end up putting up a lot of points with the weapons that they gave Drew Brees this offseason. So Kai Forbath, Connor Barth, whoever wins the starting job for the Saints, that's my sleeper.
My sleeper, staying in the same division. Second round pick Robert Aguayo, Tampa, trading up to grab him. Everyone knows 3 years in the NCAA broke basically every record there was to break. Smart decided to come out, play early. I only have him as a sleeper here because we haven't seen how he can perform in the NFL yet. Next year he might very well could be the player to target.
All right, now we'll jump into defenses. My top-rated defense is the Arizona Cardinals. I like their biggest issue last season was pass rush, and they shored that up with the trade for Chandler Jones and the drafting of Robert Kimdichie in the first round. I like what they bring to the table. If Tyrann Mathieu comes back 100% healthy, I could see them even pushing some records.
My top is the Chiefs. I would have Denver here, but I think their offense is going to ruin that defense. They all play with each other, yin and yang. They're going to be on the field too much, and it's not going to be good. Not like last year. The Chiefs, they didn't really lose anybody. They're just going to get better, especially Peters. Now he's got a whole off season with them. I'm scared. That's really scary. His first play in the NFL was a pick six. What's he going to do this year?
All right, my defense to avoid, if you've been reading anything or following anything that we've been putting out, this one's pretty obvious because it's the New York Giants. $200 million spent in the offseason on 4 players to retain Jason Pierre-Paul for a season, which I don't like the move. We talked about this. You are okay with it. I don't like it. They picked up Damon Harrison, who is a great nose tackle. Huge fan of him. And a 3-4. But the Giants run a 4-3, and they're going to ask him to be a 3-down, 4-down player if necessary. And that's not what he is. That's not what he's built for, and I don't think it's going to work for him. And then they have Janoris Jenkins, the cornerback, who I really like too, but he's got to prove that he's going to play out the full 4 quarters, that he's not going to quit on a play, that he's going to be there from start to finish. And then who's the other one? Olivier Vernon. Yep. Just got on the map, and they paid him $96 million, I think, somewhere in that range.
Something ridiculous.
So, I don't know. I could see it backfiring, especially for the Giants. It's happened in the past. They drafted Eli Apple at 10, and if you read anything on my draft stuff, I still can't explain it. Vernon Hargreaves is sitting on the board, so if you really wanted a cornerback, that's where you should have gone. They needed linebacker help. They ignored it. Avoid the Giants.
I'm going to stay in the same division again as you. I'm saying avoid the Cowboys. They are nothing but trouble this year. It seems like half their defense is suspended for the first at least 4 games of the season. I think Rolando McClain's at 10 games now, possibly. He could be suspended. And
Randy Gregory.
Yeah, and Randy Gregory. It's just avoid the Cowboys. They have no depth to begin with, so losing those players is a huge blow. avoid them at all costs. Fuck you, Cowboys.
My sleeper pick is the Oakland Raiders. First off, Khalil Mack, just a monster. And then they went out, they retained Aldon Smith, who will be back mid-season, provided he doesn't mess up again. They brought in Bruce Irvin to put on the other side, added pass rush. They had Mario Edwards from last season that they drafted, had a great rookie year. I expect him to do even more this year. And then their secondary, which was their weakest position group. Mm-hmm. David Amerson, they retained for 4 more years. He had a very productive season last year. Sean Smith they brought in on a 1-year deal. He's definitely going to bring that big-bodied corner that they need. Reggie Nelson had 8 picks last season. He's a great veteran presence for their safeties. And then they drafted Carl Joseph, who is drawing comparisons to Earl Thomas. And if he can come back off his injury correctly, maybe we'll get to see those comparisons play out correct, the way that they're predicting. So I like Oakland.
I like Jacksonville here. Anyone who's been following us since off-season knows that we've been hyping these 2 teams up, and this is going to backfire on us. It's going to backfire. But for the time being, I like Jacksonville here. One of their biggest knocks going into the offseason was their pass rush. Their pass defense, namely their pass rush, was terrible. What people don't remember is they lost Dante Fowler first practice of last season. It's supposed to help them immensely in the pass rush. He went down early. They get him back. They drafted Jalen Ramsey. He's going to be huge in the secondary for him. Miles Jack, if he can come back from that knee injury, he's going to help a lot in the pass rush as well. That's what his job is. He's a pass rushing linebacker. I see great things coming of Jacksonville. You and I talk about it a lot. Just hope it doesn't backfire on us. Possibly this time next year, we could be talking about these 2 defenses being the target next year.
If you've been paying attention throughout this video and not just skipping through it, you'll notice that in between us talking about each position group, we've had our top 5 rankings. So if you've also been following along with my articles that I've been putting out, you'll notice that some of the top 5s don't match up with what I put out earlier. I'll explain real quick. For the quarterback group, I dropped Blake Bortles from 5 down to 6, and moved Palmer up to 5. I feel like I got a little ahead of myself. After this season, I believe I'll be fully committed to putting him up in the top 5. For the running back group, I dropped Le'Veon Bell from 3 down to, I want to say, like 7-ish. He is facing that 4-game suspension. If it gets appealed and he wins, even if it gets dropped down to like 1 or 2, I'd move him back up into the top 5. But for now, don't take him as the top 5 running back. Late first round, early second round, if you're not willing to pull the trigger in the first, that's where he should be going with the suspension. Let's see, receivers, I flipped Julio Jones and Antonio Brown. That's more of a gut feeling with the Roethlisberger thing. I explained that. Tight end, I took Tyler Eifert and I dropped him down to 7 with his ankle injury and the surgery that he had. There's no for sure timetable for when he'll be back, so that's up in the air. If he is going to miss time and you still want to pull the trigger on him as a top 5 tight end, I wouldn't be against it. Just make sure you draft one of the sleepers that we've got listed in the later rounds. For now, I moved Zach Ertz up to 5. I jumped him over Kelsey. I like Doug Peterson. I like what he did for Kelsey in Kansas City. And I think that Ertz can continue to perform at a high level. And then kickers, they all stayed the same, although I was tempted to drop Gostkowski down. Decided not to. Defenses, Seattle jumped up from 4 to 2 with the Justin Houston timetable, which is 6 to 12 months. If he doesn't get back to the field right away, that could hurt Kansas City, although D4 did play pretty well when he filled in for him. So we'll see how that plays out. I'd still take Kansas City as a top 5 defense. Houston with J.J. Watt, I think I'm actually going to have to move him off my top 5 list. Depending on
that defense, and
he does.
Current, experts and stuff know way smarter than us. Just saying it could be about 10 weeks before.
And if it's 10 weeks, then it's not worth drafting him. Take him off your board completely. So yeah, that sums up my top 5s. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out part 2, and we'll see you later on in the year.